Everybody, welcome back. All right, so we're going to continue with our nonfiction unit today. So we're going to move into session 5, which is using context to determine the meaning of vocabulary in complex texts. All right, so what all of this is basically saying is that as we're coming across all the things that make nonfiction challenging, something we're going to add to that is vocabulary. So we're going to kind of talk through some things you guys can do. We'll get some samples together to tackle those complex vocabulary. When we talk about vocabulary, we're talking about like those words that we come across that are a little challenging for us. So before we do that, I want you guys to think first of a time where things started out easy for you, but as time went on, it got a little bit more complex. And to give you guys kind of a reference, think about the Little League World Series, which is like, a baseball tournament for, little kids, and they're like really, really good. So I bet when those kids were first playing in their hometowns, playing against teams their own age, things felt probably pretty easy and pretty manageable. But as they went to the World Series and as they're meeting these new teams, moving from levels to levels, it probably got a little bit more challenging from them along the way. I mean, they're playing teams from different states, even different countries sometimes. So that's definitely a way that it could become a little bit more challenging. So this is true just like it is with nonfiction texts. We started out something really easy, and then we're noticing as time goes on, it gets a little bit more challenging. So, and what's tricky is that it's not becoming challenging in just one way, it's multiple ways. So today I want to teach you there we go. Today I want to teach you that nonfiction texts become more challenging, the vocabulary the author uses becomes harder and technical, and the clues that help readers figure out what the words mean are often hidden. So when this happens, you have to search for clues all around the word to determine what it might mean. So what we're going to kind of investigate or look at is complex vocabulary and using context clues to help, which I'm sure you guys, it might ring a bell to you. You've had this at some point. Context or what's written in the text often helps us decode those unfamiliar words, and they can tell us the definition in lots of different ways. So we're going to kind of look at that article, The Amazing Octopus, that we did in class way back when. But we're going to look at it at a bunch of different levels. So we're going to look at level 2, which is like grade 2, level 4, and level 6. We're going to look at the same section. What we're going to notice is that as we're progressing these levels, the text and the vocabulary becomes a little bit more challenging. So we're going to zoom in on just one small part, and we're going to study how the author teaches us about a vocabulary word. In this case, it's predator. They're going to use that multiple times. Okay. So here's the first text we're going to look at. So this is level 2, which is, like second grade level here. So I'm going to read this to you guys. And as I read, I want you guys to think about how the author teaches what the word predator means. So to make it really stand out, I highlighted it and put it in bold here. So think about how the author teaches you what this vocabulary word is by what's written in the text. The amazing octopus has many ways to defend itself. When an octopus wants to move fast, it can shoot out water to push itself backwards. An octopus can travel many miles that way. An octopus can also protect itself by squirting ink. The ink makes the predator, or animal hunting the octopus, become more blind and lose its sense of smell for a little while. That gives the octopus a chance to escape. Okay, so if we think about how does the author teach us about the word predator? If we look at it here, so it says the ink makes the predator or animal hunting the octopus become blind. So this is actually a really good example of the author comes right out and says what the word means. I mean, right after the word predator, it tells you exactly what a predator is. Animal hunting the octopus. So that really kind of is a clear definition of the word, and they give you to you pretty clearly. So sometimes the definition's right there, like we see in these level 2 texts, but that might not always be the case. So let's try this again with a little bit more challenging text, this time a level 4. So we're kind of moving up, same section. So let's see how the author teaches us what the word predator means. Now you're going to notice right off the bat, look how many times they use predator in this section compared to the first. So they're using it a lot more. So we're going to see again how they teach us what predator means. We know in the level 2, they taught us just by saying it, but I bet that might not be the case here. The octopus has many amazing ways to defend itself from predators. When an octopus wants to move quickly to escape a predator, it can shoot water out of its siphon and push itself backwards. This is called jet propulsion. Using this technique, octopuses can travel many miles. An octopus can also protect itself by squirting ink at a predator, causing it to become blind and lose its sense of smell temporarily. This makes it difficult for the predator to track the octopus since it has darted away. The octopus can also escape predators by changing its colors like a chameleon to blend into its surroundings. But if a predator does manage to grab an octopus by the arm, the octopus has one more trick up its sleeve. It can break off its arm, swim away, and then grow a new one later. Interesting. Okay, so take a step back and ask yourself the same question. How does the author teach you about the word predator and what it means? Okay, so we're noticing they're using it multiple times compared to that level 2 text. And what we're noticing is that, I don't know if you guys noticed it, but if I kind of look after the word, it doesn't really seem like they do the same thing in level 2 where they told us exactly what it was. So this is definitely becoming a little bit more complex here. So remember how, remember in 4th grade, let's think about 4th grade. This is a 4th grade text here. Maybe you learned that sometimes the author doesn't come right out and say the definition like we saw in level 2. And instead, it's tucked away with all sorts of clues. And remember, we're going to talk about context clues. So let's see if we can use any of these strategies to help figure out what this word predator means in this section. So to figure out the meaning of unknown words, it helps to look around, or you look around a couple of things. So what do you picture? So as they're describing these things with the word, what do you see in your mind? Ask yourself what's happening. So as they're saying the word, what's happening with this word? Is it positive? Is it a good thing? Is it negative? It's a bad thing? And then what type of word is it? Okay, so if we kind of think back to this text here and ask ourselves a couple of those questions. So if I ask myself, is it positive or negative? Well, it definitely seems like it's more of a negative word, right? I mean, they're talking about how it wants to escape a predator and usually not wanting to escape something unless it's like really bad. Talking about, let's see what else do they use, defend yourself from it. And obviously, like when you're defending yourself against something, it's usually not very good either. So automatically, my mind makes me think like it's more of a negative word there. Another thing that sounds too, as like this passage was really descriptive, and I'm kind of picturing in my mind all the different ways that an octopus is trying to escape or defend itself against a predator. So I can imagine like maybe like a shark. I don't know if that would be like its natural predator, but I can imagine like this big predator, this big shark with these sharp teeth coming by, trying to attack the octopus, and they're doing all of these different things to defend itself. Like it's shooting itself backwards, it's squirting ink. It can escape by changing colors. So that also kind of helped me. So maybe predator, in this case means something that's like dangerous or some kind of danger, because we're talking about how it's defending itself, how it's trying to escape. So it's definitely a more negative word. And then we look at all the different times they mention it, and they're talking about getting away from the predator, which makes me think it's something bad, something that's trying to harm it. Okay, so we're seeing this get a little bit more challenging now. So we're going to take it up one more notch here and look at grade 6 text. Okay, so this is going to be more challenging, but we're still going to ask ourselves that same question. How is the author teaching us about the word predator? We have a list of different ways now. We have picturing it. Is it positive, negative? What's happening? So we're going to see if we're noticing anything here. Maybe it's the same as our other texts, or it's a little bit more challenging here. So you can see it's only mentioned a few times in this passage, but it's still in there a couple of times. One of the most striking characteristics of the octopus is the wide array of techniques it uses to avoid or thwart its attackers. When an octopus wants to move quickly to escape a predator, it can expel water from its siphon and push itself backwards, a process called jet propulsion. Using this technique, octopuses can travel many miles. An octopus can also protect itself by squirting ink at a predator, obscuring its view and causing it to lose its sense of smell temporarily. This makes the fleeing octopus difficult to track. And if a predator manages to grab an octopus by the arm, the octopus has one more trick up its sleeve. This escape artist can break off its arm, swim away, and then grow a new one later with no permanent damage. Okay, so we're seeing it still teaching us the same thing, but the vocabulary is a little bit more tricky this time. They're not using the word as much as they did the last text. So if we ask ourselves the same question, how does the author teach what the word predator means? So It definitely isn't like level 2 where they come right out and say what it is, but it seems like even though this is a higher level text, it definitely seems like they're teaching it the same way as level 4. By looking around the word, we can kind of see like they're talking about defending itself again, to thwart off attackers. It basically means like to get them away from them. They're talking about how they squirt ink to protect themselves at a predator, all these things. So they're kind of doing the same thing as level 4 by painting a picture in our mind, kind of showing us this word's negative. But this time they're not using it as much, and the words around it are a lot more tricky. So it definitely seems like it's kind of the same thing there. I mean, like in the last section, they use the words defend itself from attackers. And now in this first section, it says, let's see, wide array of techniques it uses to avoid or thwart off its attackers. So it no longer uses that defend word we're used to, it uses a more complex word. So it's still doing the same thing, but it's just a little bit more tricky with the vocabulary. Okay, so just to kind of debrief the work that we did today. So we talked about how nonfiction gets complex, this time focusing on vocabulary. So these are all the things we've done so far. So I added vocabulary to our little ongoing list here. So what's important about this work that you guys do is that anytime you're reading nonfiction, you come across a word you don't know that's hard, don't blow past it, right? You don't want to just say, you know what, it's fine, it is what it is, because the author included those words for a reason, and chances are it's important to understand the text as well. So anytime a word you come across is a little bit challenging, try looking around it. Try using context clues. Try going through the list like we did here. Is it positive, negative? What are you picturing? Because that can help you understand the vocabulary word. Is it perfect? No, but it is a helpful strategy, especially if you are coming across a word you don't really know. So here's your task for today. So your task is to read your nonfiction book for 30 minutes, okay? Typical stuff. As you read, I'm going to challenge you guys to jot down just one, but if you come across more, that's fine. Jot down a vocabulary word that you come across in your reading today that you don't 100% know. Maybe it's a word you kind of are familiar with, but if you can't tell me the definition of the word, that probably means that you don't know it super well. So jot that word down. Using the context, so what's around it, predict what you think that word means. So based on what's written around the word, based on what you kind of picture in your head, is it positive, negative, what's happening? Think about what you think that word means. Then once you've done that, you're going to actually look up the definition to see if your prediction was correct. So you're kind of starting to use those strategies a little bit. With just one word today, hopefully you guys come across one. I'm sure you guys will come across at least one. But that is your work for today. All right, we're studying vocabulary, how it's tricky, using context clues. All right, so off you go.